Shalom Yashrala, this your brother Dawada, coming back at you with this here truth again. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rakakwadash. Double honor to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone that taught us this truth and never will. And citation of much love for you, Aki, and pushing this truth and sincerity over the four corners of the earth and enduring afflictions to feed and edify the elect. So I want to jump into this here article real quick, which is very, how do I put very, it's pretty much saying exactly what it is, man. All right, as far as who America is and their stance on over the world, man, calling them out for who they are. All right, or how they would say, calling it like they see it. It says Chinese report decries U.S. hegemony. All right, it says Washington. Hegemony is basically like your pure dominance over. So if you another way of saying that is you could just say Chinese report decries U.S. dominance over everybody else. All right. So it says Washington urges the rest of the world. Washington uses the rest of the world for its economic benefit, displaying arrogance and prejudice. The keynote document says, and that's exactly what America does, man. All right. It uses all these other nations. There's a scripture to speak about that. It gathers unto them all nations and heapeth unto them all people. And like I forgot what verse it is, but maybe around like the 6th or 7th verse in the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2. All right, it goes into that. All right, but gathering unto all these different nations is for what? It's to pretty much reign over top of all the people and then extract the resources from up under them. All right, so let's read this. It says the U.S. has been abusing its hegemonic position in the world for decades to reap the benefits for itself and sow rivalry and instability in other nations. All right, so going back up to the top, the U.S. has been abusing its hegemonic position in the world for decades, right? So just imagine, you're just in charge of anything, man. All right, let's say you had a job and you in charge of payroll or something like that. But because you in charge of payroll, you over here just extracting money up out of everybody's paycheck and everything else like that. Now you also the hiring and the firing boss. So if somebody was to complain about it, what do you think you're gonna wind up doing? Just firing them, hiring somebody else and extracting the money from them. So it's just like the people that's beneath you gonna look up as like, look, the only way I can have a job is have a job up under this guy who's going to be stealing from my paychecks and everything else like that. And I can't even say anything about it. At least I get fired. There's a major consequence for calling a spade, man. And that's pretty much what, America is doing. All right. Hey, for one, obviously, the Lord said that, they was going to have dominance or control over the whole world. But, in this here scenario, it's like, hey, man, you're in charge of, reigning over everybody else. But look at what you do to them all. Right. It says the U.S. has been abusing its hegemonic position in the world for decades to reap the benefits for itself and sow rivalry, instability in other countries. A report published on Monday on the Chinese forum. It says, let me go back to that. It says, and sow rivalry and instability in other nations. A report published on Monday on the Chinese Foreign Ministry officials' website claim. All right, and so, hey, going into this sowing that rivalry, matter of fact, let me go ahead and grab it now. This is going into, let me just read it. Jeremiah 51 and I want to say verse 7. But going into this here, let's just read it. Jeremiah 51 and 7. It says, Babylon have been a golden cup in the Lord's hand that made all the earth drunken, and the nations have drunken it for wine, therefore the nations are mad. All right, and this is what, what pretty much goes on, man. All right, they make these deals with these different nations. All right, and then all of a sudden, it goes bad for these people, man. They set up themselves in different positions. Like, for instance, right now you have a scenario where, damn, I forgot who was all involved in it. But anyway, you have situations like, okay. So you got America and all of NATO, right? Financing and backing and sending weapons and everything else like that to the Ukraine. However, they're urging China not to be going and backing Russia in this scenario and say, hey, look, y'all can't be backing Russia in this. This is going to be an act of aggression, blah, 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 blah. We're going to hit y'all with, whatever reciprocal, things that need to be done, and that's pretty much saying the same thing that America's doing, man. How, Putin is saying it's a red line for anybody that's arming and aiding Ukraine and everything, and those countries are going to suffer the consequences and everything else like that. And America's like, oh, how dare you try to, come at us? We're just trying to help these people and save these people and save lives. Well, in the same sense, in the same token, the Chinese could be saying the same thing about Russia. Hey, well, we want to send them weapons. We want to give them some aid and everything else like that. Hey, y'all back in one side of the war. We can back the other side of the war, right? But yet and still, that's a no-go for them. All right. So, hey, this is, that Babylonian juice that these nations are waking up from. It's like, wait a minute, this ain't fair. How can you do one side and we can't do the other side? How can you arm them to so-called save lives, but we can't arm these people? Or how come we can't talk about peace and negotiation with these things? Because ultimately it's just what you guys want to go and do and everything else like that, man. All right, so you see, this actually being played out right here and right now. Another scenario of that, you have the South China Sea, disputed territory in the South China Sea or even Taiwan, right? America's all the way, well, we can get that in the scriptures as well too. Never keep it at home. But hey, America's always in these other nations and telling them what they can and can't do, pulling up on them. But look, let China or Russia or any of these other nations pull up in Mexico. Let them pull up in Cuba and see what happens. America be pissed, man. They're like, nah, y'all can't be over here like that, man. All right. So it says the document seeks to draw international attention to the perils of the U.S. practice to world peace and stability and the well-being of all people. Again, going into that Babylonian juice, man. We gotta go and investigate this, man. Because look, y'all say one thing, but the reality is something completely different. So they've been sold this here Babylonian juice, this wine, right? And guess what? They didn't got drunk up off of it, man. All right, this is just like you going out and you trying to a lot of times a lot of business deals, high end business deals are taking place either in like strip clubs or like bars and things like that. And the purpose of those things is for what? You have the smoke in the mirrors, get you a little bit more relaxed. You go to strip club, there's women around and everything else like that. Got the ambiance, the music playing and everything. And guess what? They got drinks there, right? And same with the bar. The bar, they got drinks there and everything else like that. The atmosphere is a lot more relaxed, and so what the person's trying to do is, trying to get the other person to be a little bit more relaxed, more receptive to what they're trying to give them or sell them or offer them or whatever it is like that. Then also the drinks. All right, the drinks are just, hey man, like I forgot who it was who said that all Jake needs is a little bit of fuck it in their system. They get a little fuck it in their system and they good. So hey, these drinks, they allow your guard to go down. Now imagine that same business meeting inside of a business office. Y'all all sitting at desks, bright lights, everybody's all attentive and everything else like that. You're a little bit more like, all right, bro, we either with this or we not with this. And uh we either with this or we not with this. But if you're in like a strip club or something like that, or a bar or something, and they didn't had a couple drinks and everything else like that, they're more willing to make that their deal. But then, when they sober up and everything, you just think about it. When you go out or you go drinking and everything else like that, you may be more willing to go, fuck it, let's just go out to eat. Let's go spend this. Let's go spend that. And the next morning you wake up looking at your bank account like, what the hell did I do last night, bro? Like, man, fuck, I shouldn't have spent that money. I shouldn't have did this. I shouldn't have did that. So the same, this is why the scripture is comparing this to that wand. But hey, this is, part of their doctrines, all right, and the things that they got going on. It sounds good on paper, but once you see it in action and see it being played out, it's like sobering up from those drinks, man. It's like, wait a minute, this is not actually how we envision this to be in play, right? So, hey, another example of that would be the formation of NATO. NATO was formed as a defensive alliance against Russia, all right, but as the smoke clears or as the people sober up from it, they realizing that this is an offensive tool, all right, being used to wage war. All right. It says the documents seek to draw international attention to the perils of the U.S. practice to world peace and stability and the well-being of all people. They're trying to call them out, right? It offers examples of Washington's purported selfishness in the areas of politics, the military, economy, technology, and culture. And that's the thing, we can even just speak about any of these things, but let's just say, well, look, the technology. They always talk about how China's stealing technology, China doing this, China doing that. Well, you do realize that the majority of this here stuff come from China to begin with. We wound up stealing a lot of their shit. All right. And we're not even going to get on to the fact that Esau and everything that he got from his culture, his heritage, his name, everything he got, he done stole from somebody else. Even the land that he's on. The names of everything he got, he done stole all of that shit from somebody else. And he got the nerve to be sitting over here calling somebody else a thief. Esau's the biggest thief on the whole earth. He stole a whole identity, man. All right, calling himself the Israelites, all right, or Israelis, the Lord's chosen people. All right, man. How dare this devil, man? All right, but nevertheless, continuing on. All right, it says, well, shit, we can go into culture as well, man. This guy over here is the one that everywhere around the damn globe, they all be speaking English, right? You want to go do some shit on a large scale, you got to be able to speak English. You want to be a pilot anymore, you got to be able to speak English. At these world forums and things like that, or these big world national meetings and things like that, everybody's walking around in the Edomite attire, man. You don't see people walking around in Chinese attire, or different, native lands and their attires and things. No, they all looking like Edomites walking around out here, man. So, and then not only that, you see the how do I want to call it, the community agenda or the Mo agenda being pushed on the whole earth, being coming from right here. Oh, well, look, if you want this here agreement, you want us to protect you militarily, you got to be able to allow these folks to be in your militaries, this stuff to be taught in your school, women to do all kind of crazy shit, shave off this, cut off that, dye this, hair color this and everything else like that, tell your son to cut this off. This is what they push and they promote, man. So that now their cultures start to mimic American culture, man. And look at American culture out here, man. It's all divided. It's all tore down. I was looking at something the other day, and it was just going into just just how bad things were. You can't even recognize yourself because everybody is just so. It's just all for themselves. It's all super polarized to the point. It's like, look, it's me, 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 and your ideologies change by the second. So none of us are on one accord. You have the idea of what is an American. That line has been gone for a long time because he's like, yo, you can say most Americans like this, like that, so on and so forth. Man, you can go talk to two people. It could be two siblings, a husband and a wife. You know what I'm saying? A classroom full of kids, or a group full of all kind of people, people who like the same sports team, and they have polar opposite ideologies on a lot of different things, man. All right, nobody can really come on one accord with one thing on anything, man. All right, you could both like the same football team, but I don't like the jerseys that they have on. I don't like the starters that they have. I don't like where they got their stadium at. You know what I'm saying? And shit be just beefing like that over, like, yo, bro, I thought we was on one accord. We like the same team and shit. We should have more in common than just that, But nowadays, the majority of the thing that Americans have in common nowadays is the fact that they just basically, citizens of the United States. That's basically the only thing that they have in common, man. All right, you go try dealing with these people in the world, man, and see how, opposite they are from one another, man. Only the brothers and sisters here truth, because we're bound by what? The word and the Lord, man. All right. So hey, even we have differences on different things that we like here and there, but ultimately the one thing that brings us together is what? The word, man, and the Lord. All right. The rest of these people out in the world, as far as being friends, they're friends today and enemies tomorrow, man. All right, selling their own people out, just for just because the wind current change blowing directions, man. All right. So, hey, you spreading this here culture, which is a deteriorating culture. You see what's happening here. Imagine what's going to happen to the rest of the world. It says, for a century, the U.S. is treating Latin America as its backyard, where those who resist the U.S. face political interference, right? Military intervention and regime subversion or regime change, all right? And which, matter of fact, let's go ahead and grab that real quick, too. This is Isaiah 14 and 16. Oh, no, 14 and 9, maybe. Yep. Isaiah 14 and 9 says, hell from beneath is moved to meet thee at thy coming. It stirreth up the dead for thee, even all the chief ones of the earth. It has raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations. So, hey, that's what America specializes in is regime change, man, overthrowing governments, man. The whole thing in Ukraine started with what? A coup or a coup d'etat, overthrowing the government, man. All right, setting up their own leaders and everything else like that so that they can use them to go and do the bidding of the American politicians, man. All right, like this guy Zelensky, who, they say that before this whole scenario, this nigga didn't even speak no Ukrainian, man. All right, this nigga was an actor and everything else like that. And so, this is just more or less like a puppet doing the bidding of the West. All right, them people over in the Ukraine don't want this war. Them people in the Ukraine don't want to be fighting their own people in Russia. You see what I'm saying? But hey, they all being sacrificed by the hand of basically Babylon the Great. Babylon is the one that's forcing everybody into this here conflict. Babylon forced Russia into this by arming Ukraine and sending weapons up on it and troops up on their border. All right, Babylon has forced the EU and NATO to go up in here because, hey, they're the horde that rides upon the beast. They got to go, right? Oh, it's Article 5. We got to go and help our people out. You know what I'm saying? Well, really, Article 5 don't apply to them because they're not a part of NATO. But, hey, wherever America go, the rest of the beast is going to follow, man. All right, so hey, America is pretty much the one that's doing all of these things, man. All right, forcing everybody to the table. All right, let's go back to this here article. All right, it says, let's just start back up at the top. Oh no, here we go. It says elsewhere it created divisive blocks under influence and foster color revolutions against the opponents. Again, those coups d'etats or overthrowing the government, regime change we just read about. Lately, Washington has poised the false dichotomy of democracies versus autocracies and arbitrarily labeled nations as members of one of the camps. And again, that's something that Esau does, is categorizing people, man, put them in the groups, all right, so that they can divide them up against one another. The use of force has been a feature of U.S. expansionism since the independence. Since its independence, the document says, since 2001 alone, wars launched by Washington in the name of fighting terrorism has claimed over 900,000 lives, with some 335,000 of them civilians. And see, you go back to you go back to 2001, and you ask us. People always ask, why would the American government do this to their own people? Well, look at what they got to benefit from all this stuff, man. All right, trillions of dollars in the resources. All right, and put nations under subjection. All right, expanding their borders all the way across the damn globe, man. Ultimately, just to get more shekels, man. They got more and more money up under their belt. You look at this debt that America has, which all that is going back to what? The elites, man. All right, they muster up all this here money and everything else like that for these elites, man. So they like, let's just say 2,000, but it was a little bit more than 2,000. Let's say 2,000 to 3,000 people were sacrificed for all this here money and all this here profit and all this here gain for these people, man. All right, and now that's just in that one event. You know what I'm saying? Now over here they talk about over 900,000 lives, being taken into conflict since 2001, which probably has been way more than that, either directly or indirectly, because we know about the depleted uranium they used over there and the lasting effects. Matter of fact, let's read the next paragraph. It says the Pentagon has used an array of appalling methods of war, from biological weapons in Korea to depleted uranium munitions in a more recent time, causing countless civilian casualties and lasting environmental pollution, the piece notes. So just because they didn't just openly shoot somebody and kill them right then and there on the spot doesn't mean that the pollutants and the leftover and the things that you've wound up doing, all right, didn't wind up leaving these people in the same position, man. All right, you could, leaving that depleted uranium around, you have lasting birth defects. People wind up dying off and cancers and things like that, man. You set up these damn terrorist groups over there to go over there and be killing off a lot of other people in it as well, too. Those numbers aren't counted up into this 900,000 lives being taken, man. All right. That number is just from like, yo, we didn't see a nigga, shot a nigga, killed the nigga right then and there. That's one life. But for you to sit over here and, use some depleted uranium, now somebody's being born with birth defects and wind up dying from it, you don't count that as a loss of life. That's just natural death, man. All right. It says, matter of fact, let me grab something off for that as well, too. Well, let me read this one and then we'll let me just finish this off. It says the U.S. government has used its dollar status as the global reserve currency and its influence on an international financial system to quash competition and slap unilateral sanctions against opponents. Again, going back to that Babylonian juice, man. All right, that wine, transgressing by that their wine. Neither keep it at home, as the scriptures speak about, right? It says Washington is basically collecting. Now, I didn't look up this word, but basically this word goes into, a government being able to benefit off of, creating a currency and things like that from around the world. They use the petrodollar, all right? And then also they print their own money. So they're the ones putting the value on their own money and then telling you that it's either worth, in the trade for you, it's either worth less or worth more. It says the report calls the U.S., accuses the U.S. of using its status as the leading technological power to conduct electronic surveillance and espionage, including against its closest allies, as well as cyber warfare, noting that having the leverage of big tech companies allows the U.S. government to censor speech online and to push its narrative on a global scale while silencing its critics. And that's why a lot of people are stuck in this Babylonian. They look and they read this bullshit that be on the news. So the news is always painting America as what? The saint of the whole world, and everybody else is the bad guy. But that's not true, man. You got to look at this scenario. I had a conversation with somebody just the other day, last night, as a matter of fact, who was saying something, and this was a Jake, talking about some where they was at, these folks was in the market, some and I'm gonna use the terms they use, some Hispanics was in the market and they was speaking Spanish and they was like, nah, we don't speak no English, basically, in their language and everything else like that. Like, man, it sucks to how you in your own country, you don't even speak Spanish. Like, and the irony of this whole scenario is these people are in their own country. These folks came over here and stole the country and put these people in captivity. And then the language that you complaining about that these folks is speaking, that was the language that was given to them. They're not even speaking their original language. So the nerve of these people to say, hey, man, I wish these people would speak the language of the native land. Like, how you think the Native Americans feel? Like, wait a minute, y'all came over here and stole our land. All right, how y'all, if anything, you should be speaking their language. But the irony of this whole thing is like the brainwash that America has on the masses of the people that, oh, these folks over here speak, why don't they speak the language of the land? Like, you do realize that they had the land before you had the land, right? And they had their own language, and that you came over and changed their language. Now you over here complaining that you want them to go and speak the language that, you know what I'm saying, of the land, which obviously, again, you could go back to the original language of the land, would have been Hebrew. All right. And then they didn't put that, they gave them Spanish basically after the fact, man. All right. Because the Northern Kingdom wasn't speaking Spanish to begin with. All right. But in case you didn't know, it says we just read that. The document concludes that the U.S. should do some soul searching and change its approach, as the historical trends of peace and development, cooperation, mutual benefits are unstoppable. All right. So let's get back into this. Oh, I should have went back to that article. Give me 1 second. There was something else I wanted to touch on at the bottom of this here article. Where are we at? Hang on 1 second. All right, the Lord's will, that point will come back to me. But let's just jump in and read the rest of these here scriptures here. But ultimately, hey, man, this is America being called out, man. All right. Matter of fact, let me go up to I just read this, or was going to read this, but this is Isaiah 14:16. It says, they that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake the kingdoms, that made the world a wilderness and destroyed the cities thereof, and opened not the house of his prisoners? All right, so this is what these nations are looking at. Like, wait a minute, you and your dominance has just been rape, robbing, and murdering all these other nations on the face of the earth. This is what you've been doing the whole time, man. And now you're being called out about this, man, because of, what been able to, the position that you've been able to sit upon, and to, how do I say, enact all these pressures on these other nations, man. All right, your hegemony, man. Matter of fact, I think it was something else in here. Yeah. It should be like verse 4. Yeah. Actually, the point I want to grab is verse 6. All right. It says, he who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke, he that ruleth the nations in anger is persecuted and none hindereth. All right. So, hey, let me read that in NLT. It says, you struck the people with endless blows of rage, and held the nations in your anger grip with unrelenting tyranny. All right. And so the article that we're over here reading, does that not sound like what the nations are crying out about? Saying, is this the man that, beat all the people into powder? All right. To use your anger and your unrelenting tyranny on the other nations, man. This is what they're calling you out for, man. So, the narrative now is being clearly being seen of who America really is and what they're really doing, man. If you're still believing in all this stuff, man, you just lost in the sauce with this here Babylonian juice, as well as these other nations, man. All right, because, hey, man, it's to the point now where you should be waking up like, damn, especially for people that's been, older folks should have probably noticed this as well too. But I can say for people as far as my age, like, damn, man, the last 20 years, America just been bombing the hell out of countries, actively. You know what I'm saying? And just overthrowing governments and all kind of shit like that, man. And these people ain't doing none of this shit to us, man. They over here talking about the Russians, they fucking up the elections and everything else like that. But like, yo, America overthrows whole governments and set up puppet governments all over the place. America literally stole other nations. And you just think the United States is just from coast to coast, from the East Coast to the West Coast. No, you have the American empire, man. Not just, like NATO and the EU, those countries like that. But you have nations that America pretty much didn't hijack and stole, like the Ukraine, man. Set up their own puppet government and using that for their own battering ram, man. All right. So, hey, man, this is to the point. Matter of fact, we can read this and close out on this. This is pretty much, America being called out for who they really are. Habakkuk 2:5. Here go that Babylonian juice again. It says, yea, also because he transgresses by wand, he is a proud man and neither keepeth at home. All right. He's always in somebody else's nation, always in somebody else's backyard doing some other shit. And you over here fucking with the Ukraine, trying to fuck with Russia, and you over here doing the same thing in China with Taiwan, man. All right. So, like, when you going to stop with that, man? All right. Yea, also because he transgresses by wine, he is a proud man, and neither keepeth at home, who enlarges his desire as hell, and his death cannot be satisfied. All right, it can't be. It can't. How did he say? Can't stop, won't stop. I thought I told you that we won't stop. I thought I told you that we won't stop. That should be, America's little link jingle. What they call it, the Pledge of Allegiance. That's all that they should say, man. You know what I'm saying? Or matter of fact, the new Pledge of Allegiance should be some goddamn drill rap song. We come in and laying them niggas down on your block and smoking the ops. All right. I thought I told you that we won't stop. That should be their pledge. That's what the fuck that they doing. We pledge to do that shit. Right. It says, and as his death cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations and heapeth unto him all people. The start of that article goes into that, the American hegemony. It does this to do what? Gather up all the resources of all the nations, man. Spoil all the other nations, all right? Verse 6, shall not all these take up a parable against him and a taunting proverb against him and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his, and how long to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. So now you have these other world leaders, these other nations calling America out for their wickedness, man. The stuff that they do, I'm like, bro, how long you gonna be over here invading countries and bombing other countries and involving yourself in war and everything else like that? How long you gonna be plundering these other nations? How long you gonna be doing all this fuck shit out here, man? All right. Shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee, and awake that shall vex thee, and thou shalt be for booty unto them? And it seems like in the last couple years, you starting to see a lot of these different nations starting to raise their head up and call America out, man. Walking out at these UN meetings and everything else like that. The thing that America used to do to these other nations, like when Iran got up to start talking, basically all the West would get up and just walk out and disrespect them folk like that. Now you're starting to see a couple of these nations doing that on them. They talking about, Africa, they trying to get certain nations in Africa to, help out and aid this war in Ukraine. And they like, man, why the hell we want to help the colonizer? If anything, when we needed some help, Russia them was over there for us, not y'all. You know what I'm saying? So, hey, some of these nations are actually calling them out. All right. It says, because thou hast spoiled many nations, all the remnant of the people shall spoil thee, because of men's blood and for the violence of the land and all the city that dwell therein. And so this is what you see and starting to happen right now. And even the fact of the matter, like, let's say, the scriptures speak about reward her double as she rewarded you. Spare none, have no pity. Then there's another verse that say, speaking about the Medes, they're not going to regard your silver or your gold. You can't pay them off. You got all kind of stuff that's going on. I was watching some of these videos earlier about the earthquake in Turkey, the new earthquake in Turkey, right? There's another one that popped off over there, and it just recently happened, so they don't really have the numbers in on that. But nevertheless, like, if this is like some shit that America's over there causing on them, because we know the back conflict between them and Turkey, America and Turkey, what I'm saying? This shit is devastating, man. Watching the videos of this shit, buildings just collapsing on top of people, man. Damn near 50,000 people missing or dead from the first one. Damn near 50,000 people dead from the first one that they didn't found. Right, and they still got thousands more missing. Then you have another earthquake right after the fact, man. Less than a week later or something like that, man. All right, and so, hey, man, these nations are gonna. Well, let me read the next verse, verse 8. Because thou hast spoiled many nations, all the remnant of the people shall spoil thee, because of men's blood and for the violence of the land and of the city and all that dwell therein. So, hey, when these nations fully wake up to all this, man, they're gonna put all their might together. And they're going to come in and ravage this here place, man, and have no mercy on you, because look at what you're doing to them, man. And see, with the American news and stuff, they how do I say? They don't televise a lot of this stuff. They don't tell you about half the shit that's really, really going on. And then when they do, they use PC words, man. I had to stop somebody one day. They was talking about stuff. Did you hear about the shelling that they was doing over there in the Ukraine and everything else like that? And so I was like, what's the definition of shelling? Shelling. And this is like, nah. See, that's that PC shit that they put on the news. Shelling is nothing more than bombing people. They don't want to make it sound so, because when you're dealing with war and shit like that, you want to do some cruel shit to people. You have to dehumanize them first. You got to. So, for instance, this is why when you was dealing with them folks in the Middle East and shit, instead of calling them people and killing people over there, they would say, oh, we fighting insurgents. We fighting terrorists. We fighting something else that where it wasn't like a humanized a terminology for these things, man. All right, they always dehumanize people whenever they want to treat them inhumane about certain things. So they'll say instead of, oh, we bombing people, oh, they shelling the Ukraine. They don't want to say they bombing the Ukraine because then that just sound all bad and violent and everything. But they just change the word with their, deceitful tongue, their little witchcraft, and people just, oh, they're just shelling over there. Just sound like they just shooting bombs off into an empty field and everything else like that, just dropping bombs, sitting number one. Like, hey, look, we bombing this empty field right now, but we could be bombing your city. That, and people get that type of ideology of what shelling means, and there's some other words and stuff like that they use, but it's like, what them words really mean? Another one, culling, genocide, more people know about genocide and things like that. But what does that mean? Massively killing people off. We could talk about the A word, right? What you do to little babies and stuff like that. But see, they don't say that they just offing these little babies. That would be a vicious word to say. They'll go back to saying, "Oh yeah, we just pro-choice or whatever." Like when you talk about that, I'm not gonna get too far into that. But when you talking about that, their argument, what are we really talking about? Offing babies? Like if we was talking like that vicious, oh, what kind of monster are you? But you put these little soft words on there, and now people have these conversations with a smile because guess why? You've dehumanized. Oh, it's a fetus. It's not it's just a slough of tissues and things like that. Instead of saying, no, nigga, this is a an actual human being, man. All right, but nevertheless, I just wanted to read this here article and everything else like that because it's kind of funny how they're being called out for their wickedness, man. All right, this damn the son of perdition is being revealed. In fact, we'll close with that. Let's start at verse 3. It says, "Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition." All right, the one who brings destruction, right? Who opposeth and exalted himself above all that is called God or that is worship, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God, right? Now let me jump down to verse 8. "And then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming." All right, that wick is being revealed right about now, man, and everybody's calling him out. As saying, "Is this the man that made the earth to tremble?" All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and close out with that. Lord willing, the elect was edified with this here lesson. Until next time, I say, call halal Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shah, Bahashim, Rakakwadash. Double honor to the apostles and elders, a great millstone that taught us this truth and that rule well. And salutation, much love for you. I can pushing this truth and sincerity over the four corners of the earth and enduring afflictions to feed and edify the elect. Until next time, I say, stay strong. Shalom.